What is going on? This is TJ Murphy, and welcome to another episode of Adventurous Entrepreneurs. My guest today is Mark Dambrosio. Mark grew up in Orange Park, Florida, where he spent his free time in the outdoors, hunting and fishing. At 22, he joined the Marine Corps in pursuit of a new career, where he spent 10 years conducting special operations for the recon and scout sniper communities, pushing himself both mentally and physically the entire time to make sure he was proficient at his job. After getting out of the Marine Corps in 2017, Mark started International Mountain Survival. His business concentrates on sniper, survival, tracking, and rappel courses, and he instructs snipers around the world from both military and law enforcement backgrounds. Mark competed on season 7 of the hit History Channel show Alone, where he survived 44 days in the challenging wilderness of Great Slave Lake in the Northwest Territories of Canada. After competing in the show, he started the Woodsman Selection in 2022, a wine brand that believes that wine is best enjoyed in the company of like-minded explorers, dedicated to creating unforgettable experiences for its customers. Definitely a wine brand that I get behind. Just a few of the golden takeaways that Mark shares in this episode are the transformative power of pushing oneself physically and mentally to achieve personal growth and success, the value of spending time alone in nature to reset, gain perspective, and appreciate the simple things in life, how combining passions can lead to unique and fulfilling business opportunities, like creating an adventure-based wine brand in his case, the importance of challenging traditional industry norms and staying true to your values, even in a competitive market, and key advice for aspiring entrepreneurs. Passion, hard work, and perseverance are essential in building a business that reflects your lifestyle and values. So, without further ado, this is me and Mark Dambrosio. Welcome to the Adventurous Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, TJ Murphy. Since quitting my corporate 9-to-5 and starting a business while backpacking through Asia back in early 2017, I've had the privilege of learning from some incredibly adventurous entrepreneurs. Through these conversations and my own journey, I've learned that much like in life, entrepreneurship is an adventure. On this podcast, I explore the journeys of top-performing leaders in their fields. These wide-ranging conversations include tactical business advice, how I built this insights, lessons in leadership, life hacks, travel stories, favorite hobbies, and insights into living a purposeful and joy-filled life. Adventures await us, so let's dive in. Hey, Mark, welcome to Adventurous Entrepreneurs.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, been looking forward to the conversation. So let's get into it. I'd love to start with a bit of background on the journey. Can you tell us a little bit about your story from Orange Park, Florida, to becoming a Marine recon snout sniper and scout sniper? It's kind of
Snout sniper.
Snout sniper. Well, you know what I meant. But yeah, now, eventually becoming the adventurous entrepreneur you are today. Give us a little bit of the backstory.
Yeah, man. When I was, got out of high school, before I got out of high school, I was, even as a senior in high school, I think I was taking one class and then working full time. At 17 years old. And then I worked 3 jobs, working at Texas Roadhouse, worked at Mike Shad Ford and custom graphics and sign design, all at the same time, trying to just pay the bills. And, back then in the 2004 timeframe, I knew that's not what I wanted to do. I had, even back then, I had started my own little side hustle business. What was it called? Custom, I don't know, some type of custom painting job. I used to paint motorcycles and cars and stuff like that. And, I'd always wanted to join the Marine Corps. So I was like, all right, I'm going to train for this Force Recon unit. And me and my buddy, we trained for 2 years for that. We were sick and tired of working the everyday dead end jobs where, you got to work for the man. And we said, you know what, let's go. If we're going to do that, we might as well join the military.
Yeah.
So he lost 100 pounds and I gained 50.
Damn.
Yeah. Over the 2 years, he was a chunky little thing and I was a skinny little thing. So
yeah, you put on the muscle, he leaned up.
Exactly. And then, we in 2008, we both joined and made it into the Marine Corps, and then we made it into the reconnaissance units. And then from there, that's where the journey of an actual, a job that I guess that's where the adventure first started, right?
Yeah.
The other stuff in the past, I needed that in life to understand. And luckily, I figured it out fast that, like, hey, you need to have worked these other jobs to realize that you don't want to have to go back there.
Perspective.
If you need to go back there, there's nothing wrong with that. But you don't want to have to go back to those, because it's always better to build to work for yourself. And even in the Marine Corps reconnaissance unit, you're almost working for yourself in a sense. When you're working in small teams, it's you're the team leader, you're the boss. So after 2 years of being in a reconnaissance unit, I was a corporal, and I got promoted to the team leader, which pretty unheard of. Usually, you're a staff sergeant. You've been in for 4, 5, 6 years before you're a team leader.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was older already, I got promoted to team leader. Loved my job, every bit of it. Went to Bridgeport, California, and taught the Marine Scout Sniper and Marine Survival course up there. And that's where I was able to really introduce teaching people and changing their lives based off of what I knew about the mountains, um, and implementing uh, different strategies for them to be able to best get around the mountains and how to, deal with them, how to hunt in the mountains. But 2016, I got transferred to North Carolina, second recon, and then I was just getting my head wrapped around, okay, I'm doing 20 years in the Marine Corps. Did I think I was going to be doing that? No, not necessarily. I thought, you never know. For me, I always take it like, a few years at a time. So I had just reenlisted for my second reenlistment, and they told me, hey, your hearing's not good enough. You're not going to be able to be a recon Marine anymore. But if you want to go become a cook, by all means. And
Yeah, I'm good.
I was like, no, I'll just get out. So they gave me that option. So I got out. And when I was getting out, I had about 3 months to kind of plan. When I knew I was getting out, I had 3 months to be like, oh, I've got to get my life in order. And so my entire background for the last 10 years was, okay, I was in the Marine Corps. I was a recon Marine, a scout sniper. I carried a gun. I knew how to operate in the mountains. I knew how to shoot precision rifles. But everything that I want to take these skills to translate into was either law enforcement or another military unit, and they were not going to accept me because of my hearing.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, then maybe I should just start a business teaching people how to survive in the mountains. So that's when, 2017 is when I started International Mountain Survival. The month before I got out of the Marine Corps, I started my first business, and it was slow. I'll tell you that. It was something that I had to figure out as I went. I didn't have anybody mentoring me, but you make it all legit. You Google. I think we have Google as our biggest, platform out there that we can just use and get all the information ever,
Yeah.
right? To be able to do anything in life besides becoming a rocket scientist. But maybe a doctor. Maybe you got to practice on real people for that. But I started doing that, and for the next few years, I was teaching long range precision shooting. I was teaching survival tactics, and my specialty was really, if you think of a scout sniper, you think of precision shooting. Well, you also think of like a guy that's well versed in camouflage, concealment, field skills, tracking. And so all of that was what I had a passion for. I've always had a passion for being in the outdoors and an extreme adventurous side, from alpine climbing to uh, going out and doing cold water immersions 24/7. Just
Mm-hmm.
really pushing your body to the max is what I have extreme passion for. And then to be able to take that and give that to people, it's very rewarding, because it's like, I also get to torture people, with
Yeah, I
that
was gonna
business.
say you get to take them through the ringer too. So
Yeah, so there's a little bit of joy in torturing people,
yeah.
especially when it makes them stronger, right?
Absolutely.
Uh, so yeah, I did that, and then I was starting to learn. Okay, hey, instruction, I do love it. I love working for myself. I love the schedule. Every year, you do better. You do better and better and better. It is up to you on how well you do, depending on how much work you want to put in.
Yeah.
So you want to be lazy and don't expect to make any money. Don't expect to
Your
make any
numbers are going to
moves.
reflect that.
Yeah, exactly. And I've always had the drive of um, I've been ADD since I was born, I think, and I used to be ADHD.
Yeah.
And as I got older, maybe like 16, the H kind of fell off, so I wasn't hyper anymore, but I was definitely had the ADD in me. And so I've become really good at multitasking, and I've become really good at taking on multiple things. And so I think that that's one of my strong suits when it comes to starting businesses or doing anything with my business is the fact that, hey, I can go out there and I don't just get focused on one thing. I can kind of jump around and make sure I can take care of the million tasks that are out there. Um, but as you're out there and you're trying to get your business to grow, you're starting to wonder, well, how much can an instruction business really grow?
Because
So
you're
I
really
went
the bottleneck in that in terms of scalability. If you're the only
exactly.
instructor,
Very,
you're you're kind of
very
limited
true.
in your time ability.
And you can bring your buddies out to instruct for you, but at the end of the day, and there's some bigger companies out there that do this type of stuff, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I was definitely meant for more than just instructing. So I went from there, went to Branded Rock Canyon, which is a 5-star ranch in Colorado, and I started. I used my business and I subcontracted it out to run their shooting program. Made a bunch of connections there, and then while I was there, I got casted for Alone season 7. And this is something that I want to say it started in like 2012 ish. And uh, because when I got to the Marine Corps Mountain Warfare Training Center and I was a survival instructor there, I remember this show coming out and I was like, that is an awesome show. That's
It is an
realistic.
awesome show. Yep.
And that's something that I had a lot of respect for just watching it because it was real. It was legit. These guys went out there
Literally out there. It's not like Survivor.
and it's a realistic scenario. Like you could be
Yeah.
on your boat fishing on an island in Alaska and your boat just dies and your radio communication goes down. You're like, hey, you've got some items with you.
Yeah.
You're not out there naked and afraid. All right. You're
Yeah.
out there and you've got some items. Now, what are you going to do with your time? Um, and so I was super lucky to be able to make it on to season 7. Went out there and talk about like I didn't know if I was going to last 5 days, if I was going to last 10 days. I had no clue. Um, I think the most I'd ever spent by myself was 5 days.
Yeah.
And so, you go out there and you're like, well, how's this going to work? But that was one more thing in my life where it's just like, hey, push yourself. And I love pushing myself and I love torturing myself as well. I know that I torture a lot of my clients with international mountain survival, but I also love torturing myself because every time I do, I become stronger, I become more
Amen.
knowledgeable. And so I went out there and, lived off the land. I got to trap and fish and hunt 24/7. You know, you're so worried about filling your basic needs of fire, water, shelter, food that you don't really think about much else. And you this time that I spent out there allowed me to it benefited me so much as far as in the workspace because everything is easy now compared to that.
I bet.
Um, I have a chair that I'm sitting in, for
Yep.
example,
You're not
and I
you're
don't
not
think
freezing your ass off out there.
like a chair cannot be. eh, I love a chair because when you have all chairs taken away from you, when you have toilet paper taken away from you, when you have the luxury of turning on your water, these are all things that I feel like all of us need to kind of do away with for a certain amount of time a year. If we did, we would be in a much better headspace going into the work year. And that's what it did for me. It made me appreciate my relationships with people more. It made me appreciate the ability to work as hard as you can and to reap the benefits of that, because when you're out there on a loan and you're surviving and you're working your ass off, like that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be successful. Um, it's hard, and I'll tell you, like, I do believe that when you go out and you do anything, it doesn't matter. Have you ever you've seen the show? I'm assuming
Yeah.
you've seen it when the guys go out there and they're like, "I'm just going to conserve calories."
Yep. Just do as little as possible.
I think that's the most bullshit move in my opinion. And um, if at that point that's just a game, right? And if
Yeah.
you want to go do a loan and you want to just make the money, great, go do a loan, go try and make some money. But the reality, $500,000 isn't jack shit. It's going to be gone. It's going to be taxed. $1 million
Yeah.
dollars. It's going to be taxed. It's going to be gone before you even know it.
Yeah. 50%'s gone right off the top. So
Yeah. So it's like, okay, the money thing can't be what it's about. And the people that go out there and they're like, hey, I'm just going to conserve calories and try and do the bare minimum to get by. That mindset will not get you nearly as far as the people like Jordan Jonas from season 6, or pretty much everybody from season 7. You knew that you had to go out there and you had to work. And some people will go and they'll gain a bunch of weight and they'll try and game the game and to be able to stay as long as they can out there. And for me, I was like, no, you know, at that time I only had International Mountain Survival was my only business I had, and I wanted to do it to be able to prove to myself that the stuff that I teach that it works or doesn't work, right? I want to figure out what truly works. And then also, I wanted to do it in the state of mind and my body's state of the actual state that I'm in, not
realistic situation.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so I didn't gain any weight for it. And I remember going out, I weighed 210. I remember whenever I went out there, I was like 205. And I was like, oh, damn, I already weigh less than what I normally weigh.
Yep.
And we went out there and I just knew it was work time, right?
Yeah.
And since
Amen.
I've always had that work ethic, I was like, time to get to work and have a plan and have a goal and be able to adapt your plan. Plans never go, as planned. So I got out there, started making my shelter, and every single day I'd wake up at 4:30, 5 a.m., and I'd go to sleep at 10 or 11 p.m. And then every morning, it was crazy because my son was only 1 at the time, but every morning I'd wake up and it'd be, "Dad, wake up." And he couldn't even talk at the time, right? And
Yep.
so I was like, "Boom," and I'm up, and I'm
I'm
like, "All right,
up.
yep." And you start working, and yes, you're using a lot of calories, but I'd rather go out, burnt burn out, depleted all of my energy, but I gave it everything I had, than to go out and, do the bare minimum trying to get by day after day.
Yeah.
So what I do? I ended up catching a lot of fish. I ended up snaring rabbits. I ended up bringing in a lot of food. I built a badass shelter. I was comfortable. I had my home set, and I was working my way towards a comfortable living situation, preparing for this incredible extreme winter that was coming.
Yeah.
But, I ended up getting trichinosis. I didn't know this while I was out there, but, day 35, I started feeling extremely tired. And I'm like, oh, man, what in the heck is going on with me? And then that was the first day I took a nap while I was out there. I was like, this day sucks. I'm just going to go to sleep. And I'll say that, like, in the business world and in life, like, sometimes it sucks so bad, and your days are just going, or your weeks and your months are just so shitty that sometimes you just got to hang up the phone for a few hours, a few days, and just disconnect and then get back to it. So that's what I did while I was out there. I just went and took a nap, and I was like, I'll get my head in the right space after I sleep, because day 35 I was thinking of, I was like, man, I am tired.
Yeah.
I made
It's
another
already a long time to be out there. So
Yeah, and I made another 9 days. I remember I was dragging these little sticks back, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm too tired. Like, I'm literally like dragging these tiny little sticks, tiny, and I am exhausted. I was like, I need some more blueberries in my diet or something. So I called it. And turns out I had trichinosis, parasite that had gotten into my entire body, got to my heart, put me in congestive heart failure, yada yada yada. At the end of the day, it was such a cool experience because I learned one, I knew that I pushed my body in the past physically and mentally. And when I got out there, I was like, man, something, I can't believe I'm this tired. Right. And I know that I'm not going to make it to 100 days. I just kept digressing. And if I would have taken the stubborn mentality of, uh, I'm just going to keep going and I'm not going to call it, I'd have killed myself.
That's say
And I was
you
about,
did.
yeah, and I was about 2 days away from death whenever my doctor, told me how serious my condition was. And he was like, "You're very lucky your heart didn't just stop while you're out there." And so I was like, "Oh, well, I'm glad that I pushed myself to the max.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. And then with that, I've taken that and um, I use that as a catalyst to everything that I'm doing in today's world. Um, so, I left alone and I wasn't very happy where I was teaching these extremely wealthy hunters how to just shoot, and they just wanted to pay me. They just wanted to give me their money to teach them how to shoot and have a good time.
Yep.
That's not what I was passionate about. I was really passionate about getting people into the outdoors. And after alone, I came back, and my son's mother had mentioned, like, you left for about 2 months and you left your son. You're always traveling. You're always gone for work, traveling around the country teaching these courses. Like, and I've always wanted 50-50, with my son. And she was using that as like a, even though I make my own schedule and I can schedule it whenever I want, she was kind of
Yeah.
using that as a way to try to be like, hey, you work too much. And I was like, "Oh, well, I definitely don't work too much." Uh, I just, it's not what she's used to with having a set schedule.
Yeah.
So I said, "You know what? I need to find a way to do what I'm passionate about, get people into the outdoors, but also be able to be there for my son. Not to have any excuses. That way I can be there anytime." And with that, I was working at the ranch and I came up with this idea for my wine business, and I absolutely loved wine and I loved adventure. So I started, an adventure-based wine brand, and it was something that's different that enabled me to be home because it's a product, be home with my son more, but also give the consumers damn good wine, but also more than just wine. It's given them the ability to scan the QR code on the back, go do these adventures, and get outside and actually figure out what life's all about.
Yeah. It's a
Uh,
lifestyle brand.
it is, alone. I tell everybody, like, hey, you should spend 3 to 5 days. I think I was just telling I was just at the doctor today. I was telling my doctor, I was like, hey, um, everybody should spend 3 to 5 days by themselves in nature a year
Yeah.
and just listen and be quiet. You can eat, you don't have to starve yourself,
Yeah.
but
You
like,
can bring supplies, but
yeah, just be by yourself and it'll do you a lot of good. It's that decompression mode that you need to really reset in a lot of ways. We're so used to go, 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 go until we burn ourselves out. But, you know, for me, I go elk hunting every year in September. And it's a 10-day trip that I get to go out there. And I've brought friends in the past, and that was a mistake.
yeah.
I was like, oh, I thought that was going to be a good idea, but I should have just, that's my alone time. Being out in nature, and I go with my stick bow, one that I made, and it's been 5 years. I've still yet to get an elk with this stick bow, but at the end of the day, it's not about the killing of the elk. It's about
It's
being
the
out there.
journey.
It's the journey. It's the
Yeah.
chase. It's the being out in nature and just me running through the mountains like a mountain goat. I absolutely love it. And so, uh, yeah, so the wine business. Uh, Turned into something and just kind of took off. And because it's something different, it was uh it was well received in the wine world. Now, I will say it's the complete opposite of the world I'm used to. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do it, I think. I had the guy that pretty much started online banking. He created check free. I think it was like back in the 90s or maybe 2000s. I don't know. But he created check free, how we pay all our bills online. Very smart guy. And he has 4 wineries.
Hmm.
I was telling him about this idea. He owns the ranch that I was working at. And I was telling him about this idea, and he was like, Mark, out of all the great ideas you have, like getting into the wine business is a horrible idea. And I was like, why? And he was like, you don't make money in the wine world. I was like, fair. And I was like, well, people don't lose money in the wine world or else they wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
So I had somebody tell me pretty much, you're not going to be successful doing this. And when that happens to me, it does the opposite. I'm so stubborn, and that's where it's a good trait and a good quality, but at the same time, I've got to be careful with that quality
Yeah.
that I
You
have.
could just be diving down a rabbit hole for just to
Yeah.
prove somebody wrong.
Now, so I went at it with a very like cautious mindset, and I was like, okay, I have to figure out if this is true. How do I make this successful? And then if it's a matter of, hey, as long as I work my ass off, can I make this more successful than the other wine brands that are out there? And can I get to can I get into distribution? A
Yeah.
thing that is almost impossible in the wine world, because there's so many thousands of wine labels out there. And if I'm being honest, my wine brand is definitely kind of the black sheep of the wine world. Uh, I don't buy into the bouginess, right? I don't
Yeah,
sit
like
there and I don't
give it to us straight, Mark. Tell us what you
yeah,
really feel.
yeah, it's I have an appreciation for wine, but I also see the bullshit in the industry.
Oh yeah.
And coming from my background, who I am, I'm like, okay, I love this drink. I love what it offers. I love what it's about. It's about taking a drink, going into the well, for me, going to the outdoors, relaxing, and enjoying it with friends and family.
Amen.
And so as I started getting my flavor profiles, what I really liked, and started finding ways for people to get into the outdoors with this wine, I started running into all these people that, they would spend an hour telling you about the wine, telling you about the soil that it came from, and telling you about uh, the process and how they farmed it and everything like that. And it's kind of funny because then at the end of the day, it starts off so organic, and then it always ends not so organic. When they start adding the sulfites and everything to preserve the wine, I'm like, okay, but they spend this long telling you about these features in the wine because that's all they got. That's all their brand is. And so I don't tell anybody about, I'll tell them the real basics on the wine, but I want them just to try it. And then once they try it, 99% of the time, they're like,
I like
damn,
it.
that's damn good wine. I like it. Good, great. Now, let me tell you about all the other benefits of what this company is here to help you do,
Yeah.
um, and what this purpose is. Because so many men out there, most men are beer drinkers or whiskey drinkers. I love whiskey too. I don't really drink the beer that much, but there's not that many men out there that drink wine compared to women.
Yeah.
About 70% of women drink wine. Um, and I don't know why. And
I love
so,
wine.
yeah,
I like it
it's,
all, but wine's definitely one of my favorites. So
yeah. So, for me, I think a lot of people are out there and they don't drink it because they feel like that pers- uh, pretentious
yeah.
type of person drinks wine. And man, it's crazy when you start going to these wine tastings and you hear someone tell you like, "Oh yeah, I hate the pretentious world. I just hate and everybody says that. It's so funny. And then you
Yeah.
sit back and you listen to them be the most
It's like-
ridiculously pretentious thing you've ever heard in your life.
Even
And
saying that is pretty pretentious. So
yeah, yep. So So it's like, okay, uh, everybody out there tries to use that as a marketing tool of like just building relationships, and at the end of the day, this brand just keeps it real. Now, that's not always the best, right? Sometimes it hurts me more than it does help me, but I'm sticking true to what this brand is, and what this brand is about. And at the end of the day, like reaching as many people as I can to have them be like, all right, where should I take this wine? This isn't the wine just to, I mean, you can, the premium wines, if you want to just sit at home and sip them, great. But I really want people to get out there and do something.
This
Do
is a
something.
wine for having experiences, creating some stories to tell.
Yeah, it's really the wine to celebrate these experiences. So,
Yeah.
that's why I'm like, hey, let's do this. Here's car camping, for example. You've never been car camping. Here's a whole list of gear that you need to bring. And then here's some ideas, some do's and don'ts. Here's some locations. And go out there, try it out, and bring these few items, spend 40 bucks online, and set it up for either a really nice date or a really nice solo date. Just you out there, something better than just watching Netflix online, right?
Totally.
Um, and then when you're done, yeah, drinking the bottle of wine at the end, just relaxing. And so that's what we're trying to do with the brand. And as it's developed, it's went from, okay, let's add some items on the outside, like one's a ferro rod, you can start a fire with this bottle. And it's just always trying to push
Sick.
to, to think a little bit outside the box, right?
Yeah.
Um, and we went from that to our new aluminum wine bottles,
Okay.
which so it's the first aluminum wine bottle that's out on the market, and it's a 750 milliliter aluminum
Yeah.
wine bottle. But it's straight up for the outdoors. It weighs 3 ounces versus 14, so it's easy to pack out. You don't have to worry about glass breaking in the backcountry.
Yeah.
And then the wine that's in it, like, a lot of people worry about, "Oh, well, how long is the wine gonna be good in that container for?" Um, we're at, like, 16 months right now, and the wine hasn't changed profile at all.
Wow.
And that might be because we have a red wine in there. Red wines usually do better with the coatings on the inside of bottles than white ones do.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, but regardless, this wine isn't meant to be drank in a year from now, right? It's meant to be drank, go buy it off the shelves and then you drink it. Uh,
This
if
isn't
you
a
want to wait,
collector's item that we're gonna let
no,
sit and age
it's,
over time. We're meant to get out there and have an experience with it.
it's a $19 bottle of wine, right?
Yeah.
And it's a damn good wine for 19 bucks, but it's meant to be taken into the outdoors. But let's just say that oh man, plans change. You couldn't go, it stormed. You got to wait a few months. You got to wait a year. Okay, great. It's still going to be fine. But the aluminum wine bottle was definitely, so glass is the biggest carbon footprint in the wine industry. So when I looked at it, I was like, okay, is it more expensive to do this? Yes. It's definitely a hell of a lot easier doing glass in the wine world, but my brand is all about getting people into the outdoors. And so um, I just wanted to stick true to what that was. So that's when we went to those. We still have the glass ones for those 50, $60 bottles of wine.
Yeah.
But for your everyday consumer, getting into the outdoors and taking something, like, it's pretty cool. You can drink the bottle of wine. Have you ever been elk hunting?
I've never been elk hunting. No.
Okay. So with elk hunting, you got a bugle tube, right? So you'll have like a reed in your mouth, and then you'll have this long tube. I don't have one with me, but you have this
Yeah.
long tube, and then it'll amplify what's the reed is doing. And the wine bottle makes a perfect bugle tube.
Nice.
And that's all, like, okay, for 19 bucks, you got yourself a
Got
bottle
your
of wine.
bugle tube.
Yeah, you cut off the bottom, you got yourself a bugle tube. So it's funny because you got little things like that. You just start getting, you know, uh, creative with what you have out there. And alone, being out there, that's all you have time to do is be creative.
Yeah.
And it's like with business, as long as you can be creative, you can be successful.
Truly.
Um, and For me, it's just trying to get that spark into people of like, okay, maybe I can try something a little bit different. Maybe I can do things out of the norm. I don't need to go out there and use a professionally made bugle tube. I don't need to go out there and I don't have to do all the wine techniques that are out there.
Yeah.
I can just be me, not know jack squat about drinking wine and enjoy it. Um, and so, that's what we try and preach at the Woodsman Selection. But it's definitely against the grain. I'll tell you that. You get out there and you start telling people that some of the things they're full of shit, and they don't like that much.
No, you're probably ruffling some feathers along the way,
Yeah,
but if you're not, you're probably not going to be successful in life. So,
yeah.
well, I mean, what stands out to me, Mark, like perspectives throughout your own. First off, thank you for sharing your badass story. There's so much gold. I'm like, which way do I want to go next? But perspectives, because early on you were working these jobs that you said sucked. I mean, you didn't like working for the man, but you had the experience to be able to say, okay, I know I'm destined for more. If I have to fall back on something, sure, I know I can do it, but that's not where I want to be. You get into the military, you have a great military career, get to the point where you've got to exit, and you start taking those skills that you learned and the perspective that you gained through the military and took that and taught people how to use those skills, but you knew that that wasn't going to be the end goal either. You kind of took that as far as you wanted it to go and gained some perspective through that. Ultimately, getting on a loan and being out there for all that time gave you a ton of perspective. It sounds like that also led you to figure out, hey, I want to have more flexibility and freedom to be with my son and to also pursue other things, which led you to this amazing wine brand, which again is very counterintuitive to what most people would perceive a wine brand to be. Yeah, you've got great wine that people are going to enjoy, but it's kind of not even about the wine. It's about the experience that you're going to have with it. So I love all of that. I wanted to circle back to something you mentioned in the beginning, and it might be a dead end, but I wonder if there might be some lessons that you learned from that. You mentioned you had that side hustle, painting cars, painting motorcycles. First, how the heck did you get into that when you were young? And did you learn anything through that experience that helped you as you got into building these real businesses as an adult?
Quality customs. Let's see.
When was this? How old were you first? Just to paint a
Uh,
picture.
19,
Okay.
19, maybe 20 years old.
Yeah.
And, that's when I was working the three jobs and finding out that, hey, if you take a skill set and you get good at it, um, especially one like painting, that you can do one of two things. You can dive into that skill set and just stick with it. And if you dive into that one thing, which is painting, and you go at it full bore, you will be very successful. Now, if you're very successful, if you're the best painter out there, but you're doing it for somebody else, I don't think there's very much reward in that compared to going out on your own, and you know that your customer service, can be you can control it. So you can control your customer service, you can control your paint jobs, you can control where the money goes in the business. You don't have to worry about the boss man taking $2,000 that needs to go towards business and wasting it on alcohol. I don't know. Right? Like your devotion to that company, it's up to you. So what I learned through that is as I was working two other jobs at that time too, is that like man, I can go out there and if I back then, and I still do this now, I still cold call people. But if I go around and I build relationships, I just talk to people. Literally tell them what I do, ask them if they can use the services in any way. You start getting a client base. And it was, I think through that really opened my eyes to being able to talk to people. Um, you know, for some people, they're a little shy. They don't like getting out there and communicating with other people. And it's all about relationship building when you're trying to get new clients. And it's all about having a good, positive outlook in life, uh, being nice, not being an asshole, and then realizing that there's always someone else out there that's better than you. So if you go to the mindset that like you're going to be humble, you're going to get humbled, you're going to do your best job you can. If you make a mistake, you're going to learn from it and you're going to do right by your customer.
Own it, make it right.
Yep. Then, that's all you can do. And that's the best thing you can do. So, even though quality customs was, I wouldn't say it was exactly legit, right? It was just one of those like side. I had the business cards and everything, and I was getting that uh, that client base, but the IRS didn't exactly know about it.
No.
So,
That money was all going into the pocket.
yeah, and then, but it was from there that you realize, okay, this is kind of the way this works. And then 2000, shoot, uh, 15, I started a more legit company, which was On Point Precision Shooting, my first instruction business.
Okay.
And I was still in the Marine Corps. And I had always been used to working multiple jobs. I have time. I didn't have kids at the time. And I was like, all right, On Point Precision Shooting. I want to teach clients outside of the military guys how to shoot and do these other things. So I created a marketing plan. I created advertising stuff, and I went out there and started. Still, not exactly 100% legit, even then while I was in the Marine Corps, because you're not allowed to technically work multiple jobs while
That
you're in
was
the
my
military.
next question. I was like, is that even allowed? Yeah.
And but I always like going against the grain
Yeah.
and getting away with things.
That's where winners come from.
Yeah. So then it's those small businesses. It was just one after another where it was like, okay, building relationships. This is easy. And I have the kind of personality, which it's interesting that I'm in the business of working with people because I don't have exactly the nicest personality. I can be what's considered a dickhead. When you look at me, talk to me for the first time, you might be like, this guy's kind of abrasive. But then you talk to me for about 5 minutes, you're like, oh, okay. He's just out there, he just doesn't really care too much about hurting someone's feelings. He
What
wants
other
to be,
people think. Yeah.
always being respectful and stuff. But at the end of the day, like, yeah, I mean, I had my one of my investors. He took me out to a dinner, a really nice dinner, and I told him before he went out there, I was like, "Listen, man, you're taking the wrong guy out to a really nice dinner." And he's like, "No, no, no, just dress nice." I'm like, "Listen, do you see that this is how I dress?"
This is
So I was
nice.
like,
Yeah.
and I was like, "So, I don't mind. I'll go, but like, and I put on something like this. I went out there, and you could tell like he was in a suit, and he was like, "How is it?" He just wanted validation of how this
Yeah.
food. I was like, "Listen, it tastes like food. It's good. It's just that's not my style. My style, I would rather go into a gas station that has the world's best ribs,
Yeah.
right? And have that experience, and then to go to somewhere where you're paying thousands of dollars for a couple meals."
Yeah.
And so I just I've never been that type of person. So I've always been that woodsy kind of country, uh,
It's your brand.
yeah, personality behind it. And I've stuck to it. I'm trying to get better with, understanding this world of wine and these ridiculous people that come with it. I'm just trying to understand them. I'm not trying to be them in any way, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand them. And I just keep proving to myself when I try to understand them that it's kind of ridiculous. And this is why, I think the wine world needs a change.
Yeah. There's
Um,
enough bouge out there.
there really is, So yeah, I do hate the fact that like, have you ever picked up a glass of wine and or you open up a new bottle with friends around and you feel like, oh man, I really don't know what I'm doing. Or I feel like maybe this person here, they start using keywords and they sound extremely knowledgeable on the wine. And then maybe you bought the bottle of wine and they start talking trash on your bottle of wine. They're like, oh, that one. let me tell you about this. Those people irritate the living heck out of me. And what I do
Yeah.
with those people, I'm like, no, great, stop right now. And I'm like, we're going to do a blind taste test.
Yeah, let's
And
let's
that's what
really
everything
see.
changes, right? So when you start doing blind taste tests with people, it's been proven time and time again that wow, your $6 bottle of wine could taste just as good as your 6,000. Maybe 70% of the people prefer that $12 bottle of wine, right? And so when it comes down to it, it's like, hey, you will have your flavor profiles that you like. I have the ones that I like, and everybody's different. So a good bottle of wine is up for interpretation. And for people to sit there and put a point scale on what a good bottle of wine is, I think is kind of ridiculous. Um, sure, you can have bad wine, right? You could have wine that's it's gone to vinegar, or wine that's been oxidized too long, wine that doesn't have a lot of substance to it. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about a decently made wine, that's going to be up for interpretation. And you've got to know if you like your Cab Sauves, maybe you like your Merlots, maybe you like your Zinfandels. Like there's all sorts of different wines that are out there. They're all made from grapes. And I'll tell you, like, they all have different processes on how they're made, different barrels that they're put in, different aging processes. So, you know, you find one that you like, you can either stick with it or you can go out there and you can try something new and, not be bougie about it. Just be relaxed, open one up. And if I'm being honest, probably like, I'm trying to think. Must have been after I got divorced in like 2014. I went and uh I went and I started going on dates
Yep. Back out
and
in the world.
back out in the world, and I'd go and I'd get a few bottles of wine from the grocery store, and I had a lot of people, looking at the wine selection, not just the girls that I was on the date with, but like, my buddies that would come over, they look at the wine selection, and it'd be something comparable to like 19 Crimes that it was under my cabinet, or a Josh Wines, and they'd make their comments, and I'm like, okay, well, hold on, these are great wines,
Yeah.
right? Like there's nothing wrong with these wines, and you've got people that they just want to spend. If they're not spending $100 on the bottle, they don't think it's good wine. So uh, I am, and as I know how this wine world works now, obviously I'm totally against that mindset. If I'm going to charge $500 for a bottle of wine, that's because it's an exclusive bottle of wine, and that's because I made everything to make that wine, from the wine press to the wine to the distemmer to the hoist the barrel up, you know,
Nice.
and I will make that entire bottle, and I'll make it how my great grandfather used to make wine. And so that's where the value comes in for me.
Yeah. It's
Now,
one of
what's that?
it's one of a kind.
Yeah, and that taste, the way it's made and the story behind it will be worth it to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Um, but there's so many people out there that they'll buy a $1,300 bottle of Scarecrow, and they become part of this cult, saying, "Oh, this is the best thing I've ever had." When in reality, my $50 bottle of Hunter, my Cabernet Sauvignon, it beats out the Scarecrow almost every single time when it comes to blind taste
Blind
tests.
taste. Yeah. Yeah.
Just because it's got more characteristics that the general public likes.
Yeah.
If
I'd
you're a
way
wine,
rather be able to buy a $50 bottle of wine that's great and share it with more people because I can buy more of it than be the bougie $1,300, put it on the shelf and savor it to myself, and then it's gone.
yeah, exactly. If
Yeah.
you're sitting there and you know wine extremely, extremely well, and your taste buds, you have the ability to differentiate multiple different things and picking out the wine, then great. You can go and you can buy that $1,300 bottle of wine, and if you can do that with it, then fantastic. But most people can't. Most people will do this. They'll look at the wine. They'll go, okay, is it dark or is it light? Okay, this is a Cabernet Sauvignon. Okay, it should be dark in color. It shouldn't be. You shouldn't be able to see through it.
Yeah.
And like, okay, great. And then you ever see them swirl it around their glass?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You ever heard talking, looking at the legs?
Yep. Looking at the legs.
Bullshit. That's all bullshit, right? So it's like the alcohol percentage is what you're getting out of looking at the legs. Boy, you could just look at the back of the bottle.
I was gonna say, isn't there a label for that?
So,
Yeah.
so that whole like, oh, it's got nice legs. Yeah, okay, that's my first thing of people like, okay, what do you really know about wine, and how bougie are you trying to be? Because people want to appear to be extremely knowledgeable on subjects, right? And my brand is about getting those people that you're not extremely knowledgeable on it, or maybe you are, and oh, this is surprising. You love this. You've never heard of this wine brand before, right? But it's to make those people that have never understood the wine world and make them feel comfortable drinking it, because they understand the adventure world. They understand what this brand's purpose is and getting outside and celebrating with friends and family. Um, if we were doing this with whiskey, I don't know if whiskey is the best drink for celebrating in the state of mind that I'm talking about. I'm talking about a relaxed state of mind, um, and whiskey will do it, but it can also get you in a lot of trouble too.
Yes, it can.
So, um, but yeah, it's so we look at this wine, we're like, okay, it's we don't need to worry about the legs, but when I take a sip of it and I put it in my mouth, is there nothing to it? Is it kind of dull, or does it start telling a story? And you're like, okay, I taste things, right? I taste these different things, and who cares what you taste? Just go out, and you don't need to. As a matter of fact, like it really kind of is funny whenever I hear people like start just listing off what they taste, because they're saying it trying to get validation that that's what is in there or that's what it should taste like. And I'm like, you may be picking up notes of things that aren't even in this wine, and
Yep.
that's fine.
Everybody's palate's gonna pick things up a little bit differently.
Yeah, when you taste things and you smell things, it brings you back to certain memories too. And so
100%.
it might remind you of your grandfather's basement. Who knows what it's going to remind you of, right? But
Yeah.
when you put it on your palate, and for me, I like it to definitely have a body, and then I'll drink it, and then it'll stay on my palate for about 3 to 5 seconds, and then it'll kind of dissipate and it'll go away. Um, I want that 3 to 5 seconds for sure. I don't want it to last much longer than that, but I want that 3 to 5 seconds with a cab sauv. I don't want it to taste too much like alcohol, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it needs to have alcohol present in it. But
Yeah. It's gonna have a little
you know,
bite.
I don't like it to be extremely, extremely sweet. I'm not an extremely, extremely sweet wine drinker, but it does. So it's got to have that right tannin structure to it, to where it hits your palate and it kind of dries out your mouth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so tannins. Have you ever? Do you know where tannins come from?
I don't.
People talk about in the wine world, and it's so tannins is when people used to tan animal hides, and they still do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sometimes they'll use like acorns, and they'll tan their animal hides that way, because there's tannins in acorns. Well,
Okay.
there's tannins in the wood. So in the barrels, whenever you're aging this, it's soaking up the tannins into the wine. And so when you put that and it hits your mouth and it kind of gives it that dry, sensational feeling, I like that to hit for a few seconds, but then to go away. And if I'm eating like, okay, a really fatty meat and you find a really dry wine, it can kind of cleanse your palate where it kind of soaks up the fat, and
Mm-hmm.
it pairs well with it. If you don't like dry wines, you're not going to like that. right? If you don't like that feeling, you're not going to like that. So it's kind of a personal preference with all this stuff. But you can pair wines pretty nicely, depending on what your preferences are.
Yeah, man, it's good. I mean, I love wine. I'm not a wine aficionado, certainly not bougie about it. So it's
Yeah.
been good to get a little crash course from someone who isn't all, pomp and bouge, what the real deal is. And as we kind of move to wrap up here, Mark, I'm curious for you because you've had such a wide range of experiences in your life and you definitely go against the grain, which I appreciate about you. What advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur or new business owner who wants to build a business around their desired lifestyle and the freedom that they're looking to create?
Yeah, start that side hustle. Obviously, if you have a job that you're already working, you're bringing in that income,
Yeah.
and that's a 40-hour a week job, say for example, and if you just devote 2 hours a day, and you set a time and you time block things, and you set it to building this business, whatever business it may be, it will be successful if you stick with it, no matter what it is. If you
Yeah.
stick with it and you're passionate about it, if you're not passionate about it, you're just trying to make money, like, I don't recommend that. But if you're passionate about it and you stick with it, it will be successful. It's about time blocking. It's about doing the things that other people aren't wanting to do. It's about going against the grain. It's about looking at the industry, and when someone tells you there's too many people out there doing it, it's too saturated of a market, in your head you say, fuck that, I will be number one in this market. And maybe you don't hit number one, maybe you're number five, maybe
Great.
that's still amazing, right?
Yeah.
And I think that I'm a big advocate in everybody working for themselves. I always try and tell people, I'm like, you could sit there, you could become a law enforcement officer, nothing wrong with that. But if you want to spend time with if you got kids, you want to spend time with your kids, like, you should start looking for a way to be able to spend more time with your family and your friends, living your actual life. And if you're doing a job you love, you're doing something that you created, you're not working. You're never working. You're living,
Living.
right? So, yeah, that that's about the only advice I got for them. Work your ass off, but at the same time, take those 3 to 5 days a year, decompress, relax, clear your head, and then
Get some
read that.
perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah. And the reality is so many people start something and then quit and they fail because of it. The reality is that most things in life you really only truly fail when you give up completely and fold your cards. And as you said, if it's something that you're passionate about and you stick with it, even if you do have to start small, 2 hours a day, 1 hour a day, whatever you have, if you're consistent and you build that habit of putting the work in, you're going to find success on the other side. So
yeah.
thank you for bringing that forward, Mark. And where's the best place for people to find and support you online, website, socials, things like that?
If they want to change their life and go through a miserable year-long process in the outdoors, they can go to internationalmountainsurvival.com. For the wine business, it's the woodsmanselection.com. And then on social media, it's just Mark Dambrosio _official.
Awesome. Well, we'll put links to all those in the show notes for people listening in, make it easy. And yeah, if you want to go get your ass beat, gain some perspective and come out a stronger man or woman on the other side, definitely hit Mark up. So
Yeah.
appreciate you, brother. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story. I got tons of notes over here and it's been refreshing for me. So I know there's a ton of value for all the people listening in. To all of our Adventurous listeners, thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please be sure to subscribe, download, and share this on social media or with someone you know will get some value from it. Leaving a review goes a long way in helping people find the show, and I personally appreciate reading them when they come in. So please go drop one if you have the time. We'll see you all next week, and remember, whether we're talking about business or the things that bring us joy outside of work, life is meant for exploring. So go out there and live it one adventure at a time.